The British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. Good morning, I'm Sophie Hansen with your news updates to 10 o'clock. Mediated talks between the union representing HandyDART workers and Transdev are set to resume today as a strike that stopped most services drags into a second week. No timeline has been set for the length of negotiations. Joe McCann, president of the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1724, says they're willing to stay there as long as it takes. Our producer Spencer Pomeroy has more on the demands from the union.
The dispute centers mostly around pay, arguing its members don't make as much as others working similar roles elsewhere in Canada. Transdev said earlier this week that it will provide a reply to the union's latest proposal later today. Some more news you can expect today: the official launch of Lime scooters in Vancouver, and Skibbity Rizzler, how BC teachers are staying on top of new slang in schools. Back to you.
Now, BC RCMP say there's no evidence the devastating fire that tore through Lytton more than 3 years ago was arson. Police have concluded their investigation into the wildfire, saying they can't pinpoint the cause of the blaze that killed 2 people and destroyed much of the village. The RCMP collected evidence, including 400 videos and photos, and reviewed parallel investigations by the BC Coroner's Service and BC Wildfire Service. The European Union's top diplomat is urging Lebanon and Israel to work on de-escalating tensions along their borders. More than 500 people have been killed in Lebanon by Israeli strikes since October 8th, most of them fighters with Hezbollah and other armed groups. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell says the situation in Lebanon and Israel is on the brink of escalating out of control.
Since then, the fears I was outlining has been growing. More escalation, fears of regional spillover of the war in Gaza, and fears of more widespread human suffering.
In northern Israel, 23 soldiers and 26 civilians have been killed by strikes from Lebanon. A potential strike at Canada's largest airline is only days away. The union representing Air Canada pilots says a 72-hour strike or lockout notice could be issued as early as Sunday, and that could lead to a full stoppage as soon as Wednesday. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce is among the business groups set to hold an event in Ottawa today to urge the federal government to intervene. So far, the talks around wages and other demands appear to be at a deadlock. Nearly 200 people have died and 128 are missing in the aftermath of Typhoon Yagi in Vietnam. ABC reporter Britt Clement has more on the devastation.
The Vietnam death toll spiked earlier this week as a flash flood swept away an entire village in northern Vietnam. In Hanoi, people waded through muddy water up to their knees, some still wearing their helmets after abandoning their motorcycles along the way. And in north of Hanoi, deadly landslides and severe floods are still affecting several areas.
Yagi was the strongest typhoon to hit Southeast Asia in decades. Francine has weakened to a tropical storm after slamming into Louisiana as a Category 2 hurricane, causing widespread power outages and sending a dangerous storm surge rushing into coastal communities. ABC Ginger C says some southern states that are in the path of the storm are worried about severe structural damage.
We're talking about wind that could be in excess of 55 miles per hour just on what's left of the storm as it moves north. Memphis at 3 p.m. you've got gusts upwards of 55. Tupelo close to 60. So now that this thing is moving north, even places like Paducah will be feeling it by tonight. And on top of all of that, the flood risk is high. Birmingham, Alabama, not only will you be very windy today, but you could easily see 4 to 6 inches fall very quickly.
And for some local weather here in Burnaby, it's mainly clouds with some breaks throughout the day with a high of 19 and a low of 12. These have been your news updates to 10 o'clock. I'm Sophie Hansen with BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.